Hi, welcome back. It's Sonja
and Natasha
from the North Grove, and this is our third video for the Handle with Care series. If you're just joining us today, we'd invite you to go back and review the other two videos so that you can kind of catch up to what we've been talking about these past 2 weeks. What we're going to start out doing, like we would in all of our workshops, is we're going to do a bit of review. Last week we sent out the challenge to make a postcard for your child, just kind of decorating the front with the child's name, and then giving them a message of something that you've noticed that they've done well in the last little bit. Just wondering if anybody's had a chance. Natasha talked a bit about, kind of touching base with her kids and send a text message. Mm-hmm. Did you do anything this week, Tash?
I did. I sent a text message to say that I really appreciated something that he had done at home, and I noticed that he did it again the next day. So sometimes when we acknowledge behavior like that, we'll see them do it again, which is always a positive. So I'm going to really try to make an effort to continue doing that.
Yeah. And what I've also noticed for myself, whenever I do things like this with my child, it does elicit feelings of connection as well. So, you know what, when your child is having behavioral issues and you've kind of been bumping heads, when you take the time to kind of sit down and really think about the things that they have been doing well, it does help kind of cultivate some of those feelings that when you're starting out, you might not feel, if we're going to be honest, right? So I hope people had a chance to try some of these things this past week. And if not, you know what, it's never too late. So I'd invite you to go ahead and try it this week coming.
So we're going to move on to building block number 2, which is building and enhancing self-esteem. So some key messages for this week's building block are showing young children that they are loved, lovable, and capable builds healthy self-esteem. Positive self-esteem is linked to good mental health, as well as fewer behavioral problems, fewer social difficulties, and less feelings of loneliness for our children. So what are some components of strong self-esteem? So that would be a sense that we are unique, valuable, and important, unconditional love from ourselves and from others, the belief that we grow through our experiences in life, and not so much that those experiences, lack of experiences, or even mistakes kind of define us, and the view of ourselves as competent, kind of in our thinking, in our emotions, and just in our physical ways that we move about the world. So a nurturing relationship, particularly with our parent and caregivers, is the strongest factor related to self-esteem for children. So that, to me, when I think about that, is like really heavy as a parent too, right? Like that seems like there's a lot of responsibility there for us as parents and caregivers. But also a child's self-concept, so how they view themselves, is shaped by their interactions with others. And parents and caregivers are an important part of that.
Yeah, I do feel it is a bit heavy, and it does feel like a lot of the onus is on us when it comes to our children's self-esteem. Luckily, some of the things that we do are pretty basic things that I am absolutely positive most of you are doing already. So it's nice to kind of think about some of these things, though. So we shape self-esteem by responding to our children in a warm, accepting, and flexible manner. So when I think about that, I think about being genuine, taking the time to really kind of connect with them, like we had talked about in previous weeks, being accepting of them no matter what, and what kind of things they're bringing to the table that day, and sometimes that's hard. And being flexible, so you know what, you might start out on one course and you've got to change throughout the day, and that happens all the time with parenting, so to be flexible so that they do feel loved. So we want to also think about how our children are going to feel lovable. So being lovable is that unconditional love regardless of his or her behavior. That's essential for developing self-esteem. And we had talked a little bit about last week about making sure that your child knows that they're loved no matter what they do.
I think that's a big one too, and that's may not like what you did. So if you think of like disciplining your children for something that they did. So I may not like what you did, but I still love you, and you're not defined by those misbehaviors or negative behaviors you see.
For sure. And that it's okay to discipline our children, and it's okay to have those tough conversations, tough moments, but that, you know what, it's all done within the context of love, right? And then we also want to think about how our children are feeling capable. So feelings of being capable is directly related to self-esteem. And as a parent, I think this is something that I've kind of struggled with, is if I see my child struggling with something, I jump in and save them. And we've talked in previous workshops about giving them the opportunity to try, to fail, and to learn from that failure. And that's really tough to do.
It's hard, and sometimes you feel like you are, sitting on your hands because your gut reaction when you see your child struggling with a task or an activity is to jump and help them. But there's so much learning that comes from that struggle if we could just see it, but like you said, your instinct is to want to rescue them from that struggle.
Yeah, for sure. And we want them to know that we think that they're capable. You know what? So when they are trying something new or they fail and they go through this process, we always want to be mindful of giving them praise and acknowledgement. So we're acknowledging how hard they're trying. Even if they fail, even if they're struggling, you say, wow, you're really working hard at that, I can tell. You've been trying to tie your shoe for 5 minutes now. Or giving them specific praise. So we always caution people with try just saying, good job, good job. You want to be specific in your praise. And also, I'm just trying to think of, can you think of an example of praise that you might give your child?
I sometimes revert back to saying, like, I like the way you did this, because then it's a little more concrete. Like, I like the way you thought about how you could reach that instead of just climbing up on the counter, right? Which may have been what they would have done last month or last week. And you've probably discussed that behavior with them. So I really like the way you got the stool and reached for what you were looking for. So really trying to describe what that action was that they did that you'd like to see them do again.
Yeah, so thinking of specific praise and acknowledging when they're trying and just talking about some of the things that they're doing. So those are some of the things that I want you to keep in mind for this week when you're interacting with your child.
And letting them know that they are capable of doing hard things.
Yes.
I think even as adults sometimes we'll shy away from things that are difficult from us because we are older and we've experienced failure probably in our past, and we'll shy away from things that feel a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit scary and a little bit unknown, but letting our children know that they are capable of difficult things and how good it feels once you accomplish that difficult thing. And we can kind of mirror that and model that for our children too, and saying, this is something that's difficult for me, or this is something that's new for me, but I know that I can do it, or I can at least try, so I'm going to do that. So the activity that we're going to give you for this week is called Treasured Moments. So what we'd like you to do is try to pick a time each day to spend some quality, uninterrupted time with your child. So putting your cell phone down or picking a time of the day that kind of everybody is feeling at their best. So knowing right before bedtime, maybe for some children may not be the ideal time, but maybe for other kids it is. Maybe when they're hungry is not the greatest time to try to spend some of that one-on-one time. So really trying to carve out a few minutes, it does not need to be long, to spend some treasured time together with your child. So that could be something like reading a book together. If they're school-age children, it could be talking about their day, something positive that's happened for them. Could be playing a favorite game, going to the playground. What you're going to do is you're going to get anything that you have at home, a jar, a box, a basket, and you're just going to write some of those treasured moments activities on this card, and you're going to pop them in there and you'll save them so that maybe sometime when you're really maybe not feeling connected with your child, or your child is struggling a little bit with some self-esteem, you will grab your box of treasured moments and treasured activities, and you can pull something out of there that you can do together. So remembering too that children are not a distraction from more important work, that they are the most important work. So sometimes a to-do list for a parent can be very long. So you can have laundry and meals and cleaning up and homework and all these other things that you kind of feel like you have to do. But spending some really treasured moments time with our children is really an investment in them, in their growth, in their development, in their self-esteem, and really should be looked at not as a task, but as something that's important work that you need to be doing to help them.
What I found myself trying to do some of these treasure moments activities is that it worked better if I just left the house. I had to leave the distractions of laundry and dishes and just say, you know what, let's go out. Let's go somewhere. Yeah, and I like what you said about, like, it doesn't have to be a long amount of time, but it's about the quality of time, not the quantity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes they just kind of organically happen. You may have you may be struggling to feel connected, and you may think back to a time where you were like, you know what, we had a really great time last time we just packed our backpack with a couple snacks and headed out to the playground. So, maybe that's something that you want to try again, to kind of reconnect and have that treasured moment, and kind of looking at ways that when you feel like your child has felt their best too. It may not be when you felt your best, but it may be when your child has felt their best, and kind of let that be your lead.
So we hope that going forward this week that you'll try some of these activities, and we'd love to hear feedback. So anytime you're trying some of these activities, or something's really struck a chord with you and it's kind of made you think about how you're interacting with your child, we would love to hear how it's going, because part of what really makes these workshops and programs work at the center is the parent feedback. This is very strange for us just to kind of speak out and without having that back and forth between parents. So again, don't be shy and give us that feedback.
Yeah. And there's so much learning that comes from parents sharing what works for them. So Sonja and I always talk about how much we learn as parents when we're together with other parents in parenting groups, because another parent may have something that's worked great for them that you maybe have never tried. And all parents are bringing such great skills and tools to programs that if we can learn from somebody else, that's really what it's all about. So I'm going to leave you with the summary for building block number 2. So it says, being loved, lovable, and capable builds healthy self-esteem. Children learn and grow through these experiences. When you accept me for who I am interested in what I do and what I like, I know that I am special. I think that's really what any of us want as parents, is for our children to really feel like they are special, right? And that they think that their parents thinks they're special. So take some time today to notice the unique qualities about the children in your life, and tell them how much you value those special things. This helps children feel good about themselves. Feeling good about oneself is also related to the feeling of having some control over things. Even small choices like what to have for snack or what book to read together. So thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you again next week for building block number 3.